culture, hookup culture, or victim culture? Well, neither could we. We created this platform for those other brains, those like us, who want to give a different perspective from a Christian and conservative worldview. We talk about life, work, relationships, pop culture, and everything in between. So let's be those other girls that just don't talk about culture, but change culture.
Ooh, that was a good ending. Hello, everyone. You're listening to Those Are the Girls with Mallory and Friends. I'm Mallory.
And I'm Savannah.
And we are changing culture and bringing back traditional values. Welcome back to the show, Savannah. Super happy to have you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mal. It is always a pleasure to be here. Mallory and I were just talking about how there's just so many things happening in our world every single day. And I think your podcast is more important than ever. And honestly, as many episodes as we can get out, to just share all the different dozens of changes that are happening in our world every day. It's a time like no other. We're living in a time like no other right now.
Yes, I agree. And girls like us, like me and you and many of our listeners, I think our voices are so important right now in culture. There's a lot of things going on. And when people are looking, as humans, we're looking for entertainment and we're looking for education and we're looking to kind of understand what's going on. I think making sure that voices like ours are in spaces like this and other spaces too is so important, because when people are looking for answers, a lot of times they're going to be looking in the wrong places. And not saying that we're perfect and that we're always right. I mean, if that's what happens, that's what happens. But we can at least offer something that's different, something that's concrete, something that's like biblically based. So yeah.
Oh, I so agree. Like Mallory said, just to echo what you said, right? We're not perfect. None of us are. We're living in a flawed world. We're flawed people.
Mm-hmm.
But as we know, in this day and age, it's very important where we get our news from, where we get our media from. And, we're just here to kind of give you a kind of on the ground look at what we're seeing as young women.
Yes. So by the time you guys hear this, it'll be about a week or so from the anniversary, the 3-year anniversary of Those Are the Girls. And when is you guys' anniversary? Classy Chicks. When would that be?
In January. So it's only been 1 year for us.
Okay. Once again, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, it's been like almost 2 years. Once again, I am not good with dates and time, but that's okay.
Yeah, time is just very warped these days.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's exciting though that yours is coming up. So for those that don't know, Savannah also has a podcast called Classy Chicks. It's really good, and she talks about 9 times out of 10 very similar conversations that we're having, but it's from Savannah's perspective. And it's a really good podcast as well. She's interviewed really great guests. I've been on there. And then she's had people, the recent one I listened to was the one with the lady who is your friend that does hormone
therapy. Yes. Well, not exactly hormone therapy, but she helps regulate hormones. Yeah.
Yes, regulate hormones. Yes. So she has episodes like that. It's a really great podcast. And, we were discussing like what we were going to talk about this episode. And one thing that I think that we can both kind of speak on is like, it's culture. We're both, I think we both dress pretty well. We both are into pop culture. We both are keeping up with like, what is everyone talking about? And, culture has changed so much. There's been so many different new forms of entertainment, from podcasts to OnlyFans, to people like I guess I didn't discover him, but this guy, he's a comedian on Instagram, and I think that's like his main job. And he has cerebral palsy, so he can't speak. Wow. He's nonverbal, so he types somehow really quickly with only one hand into his phone. And it's like that his job, like he's able to like make a living. He has his own apartment, blah, blah, blah. And he would not, like, that job did not exist 10, 15 years ago to be an Instagram comedian. I think he might do stand up other places, but a lot of his stuff is on Instagram. So like, and he's super funny. I forgot his name, but if you guys Google like,
I want to follow him now.
Yeah, if you Google like cerebral palsy comedian, he'll pop up because I'm pretty sure he's the only one right now, at least. Anyway, so the idea is like just so many things have changed over time, and we were discussing one of the things that's changed is the popularity of those podcasts, like the Whatever Podcast and Fresh and Fit. And so for those who do not know what the Whatever Podcast is, Savannah, do you want to kind of explain it for people?
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, right, the Whatever Podcast it just started blowing up a couple months ago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just these two guys who, wanted to create sort of a as they call it, open conversation about dating, right? I mean, which theoretically is a great thing. Like, I was honestly very excited when I saw when I saw the first episode, when I saw what it was going to be about. I was like, this is interesting because it seemed to me to be sort of a non-biased room full of people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, just talking about their different experiences with dating.
And it probably, sorry to cut you off really quick, but it probably did start off like that, though. It probably, like many things, they probably starts off really good intentions. Yeah. And anyway, keep going.
And, as it's grown, some of my friends have been on there. A bunch of well-known people have been on there. Mm-hmm. And so I watch it a lot. And I have just become so sickened with what it's become and with the people they have chosen to represent women that I thought we should talk about it a little bit and kind of just because even for me when I'm watching this, right? And obviously I have a background of faith. I have a moral compass, right? Mm-hmm. I think, and I'm just wondering, is it a majority of my generation who's doing OnlyFans? Is this just a normal thing to do now? And it's interesting because one of the women on the podcast, we can talk about this a little more later, on a recent podcast, she's been on twice now. She has long blonde hair. She has a super raspy voice, and she calls herself conservative, right? She calls herself conservative because she thinks that the woman should stay at home, that the man should be the breadwinner, all this stuff, right? But she makes a living. She makes millions from doing OnlyFans. And so, what was I going to say about this? Oh, I think it's interesting to, and it's hard because obviously me saying that, I think, oh yeah, she's not conservative, right? Conservative means conserving values. She's not conserving anything. She's doing OnlyFans, and her kids are going to see their mom naked on the internet someday. But to young women listening who might be listening because another one of their celebrity stars are on there, or just because they want to listen to the podcast because it's grown so much, they see that and they think, oh my gosh, is this can you be conservative and have an OnlyFans? Is this a normal thing to do? And she said on there, I hope that when my kids grow up, OnlyFans isn't stigmatized as it is now. I hope that it's a normal thing. Yikes. Which is really scary to think about because, if we continue in this way, OnlyFans could become a normal thing, right? It could be normal to have your actual genitalia online for everyone to see. And I think it's just really important to push back against that culture.
Yes, I agree. And I want to talk about what she said in a second. I want to talk really quick to what you said about the Whatever Podcast. I have seen clips on Twitter. I'm on Twitter fairly often, and I've seen clips that go viral because, one of these girls will say probably the stupidest take you've ever heard in your entire life, and then a well-educated guy who's been debating his whole life will say something that makes a lot more sense than what she said, and it's just this big thing of people having discussions, and it does feel very unbalanced, the type of guests that they get. And I wanted to say what you said about talk about the OnlyFans thing. I think that what kind of the dangers of a podcast like that, so there's two, it could be a good thing and it could also be a bad thing. I think the danger is it can get people to think there is no, every person, there are not that many people that have OnlyFans. Sure, there are, in the grand scheme of things, there are not that many people. Sure, there are probably thousands of girls, hundreds of thousands of, maybe not hundreds of thousands, probably thousands of girls on there. But if you think about the grand scheme of how many women are in America, it's really not that many. Just one being on there is wrong, though. I want to just also add, my point is, I think, when the way, like, if you just watch the whatever podcast and you never like met anyone in real life and you just kept watching it, you would think that every girl you ever meet is on OnlyFans and has like
Correct.
40 body, no, not even 40, like 100 bodies by the time she's 25, and all she wants is your money. And I think that that's kind of the danger of those type of podcasts, which also like holds me, like convicts me in the sense of the exact opposite of that, which is the idea that all men are evil, all they want to do is control you, and all men are just, all they care about is your body. And like, as a woman in the 21st century, I can fall into that mindset myself. And it just shows how like these
Yes.
extremes, first of all, they're just the same coin but on different sides. That's the first thing. Both of the extremes. And number two, these extremes are what is a huge problem when it comes to dating and it comes to even our male and female interaction. I know this is controversial, but actually I'd like to get your opinion. Do you think men and women can be platonic friends?
Oh gosh, this is such a hard question. Dude, this is like the question of the century. Not really,
Yeah.
but this is a question that like my opinions have changed throughout the years. Here's
Really?
what I will say about this. I think that women can have in their mind platonic men friends. I think women can be completely innocent and have friends who are guys, right? And
Yeah.
completely without a shadow in the doubt think that they're friends. I think that 99% of the time, the guys who are friends with those women don't actually want to be friends. And if there was an opportunity to be something more, they would be. So I will say, I think that it's one of those things where it does work one way. I think that there's a lot of women, myself included, who have guy friends, right? I think that 99% of the time, those guy friends will be friends with her, will be friends with her. But if there was an opportunity, if she was out of relationship, if she showed any sort of interest, they would take advantage of it. I think that's just the nature of guys. What do you think?
I actually disagree.
What do
Only
you
I think
think?
because of my life experience. I do think men can be platonically friends with women. I think that there are things that have to go into it. I think like both of them have to not necessarily be physically attracted to each other. Obviously, I don't think
Okay.
like you can't be mean to your friend and be like, "Yeah, my friend's a hideous beast." Like I don't mean that, but like obviously
Right.
we all have our own types. Even if
Right.
we say we don't have a type, we
Right.
all do.
Okay.
So I think like if they both are just like, no, I love this person for like who they are, then I think it works. And like I can say that from my personal experience. I have two male best friends. Actually, I don't know if you guys are listening, but if you are, I love you both. And is completely platonic. I have other male friends that is completely platonic as well, but like these two guys are like, I'm very close to them. I would consider them brothers, which is another thing too. Like I consider the idea, so one of them is single, and the idea of dating that person is like, that's my brother, like weird, like why would you say
Okay.
that?
So, yes, I understand what you're saying. So, I will make a caveat to what I've said. I do think that, right, I said 99% of the time, I think there are exceptions. And I think that one of those exceptions are people you've grown up with. So, did you grow up with them?
So I wouldn't say we grew up together, and that is a good point. One of my friends,
Because you can literally have wired in your brain that they, for both of you, that they're sibling, that they're
we didn't
almost
necessarily grow
siblings.
up together, but we did have like pivotal like growing moments
Right,
together.
exactly, yeah.
And we know each other in that way, and I feel like so like definitely that's a good point. Someone like that, I think it is very like your brain is like my brain is wired like those are my brothers. The other guy, I actually introduced him to his wife, so like
okay, that's fair, that's fair.
but we're still very close.
Right.
Like he was my best friend at the time, and I mean he's still a very close friend, but like his wife.
Right, so I think in my brain the two exceptions to what I said, because I know that's like a blanket statement, the two exceptions would be that I'm thinking of right now would be people who you've grown up with, and then your either like your significant other, whether it's a boyfriend or husband, their significant other, right? So like I think that you can have a completely platonic relationship with your significant other's friend, right, who
Yeah.
like has a wife, who has a girlfriend. Now, I think that there are very fine lines. I think that, you know, and I know that a lot of conservatives would disagree, right? I don't think that it's appropriate for any woman who's in a relationship to hang out with any man one-on-one. Doesn't matter if they're completely platonic. I don't think it's appropriate because of the instincts of men and women. I just don't think it's appropriate to just be in a group, you know? I don't know. Like I said, my opinions have changed over the years. I think that, like, Mallory, so are any of the guys that you're, and obviously you're not going to call them out, but are any of the guys you're talking about, are they single?
Yes, one of them is.
And you don't think that if you gave him any sort of interest, he would go for you?
Absolutely not.
See, I think you're wrong.
Absolutely not.
I don't even know him, but I think you're wrong. I think it's just the nature of guys.
I see. The part of the reason why I know, like, I feel like he would not is because I think he truly does see me as like a sister, like, or as like a cousin. Like, I don't.
Is he one of the ones that you've known for like?
No. We met in grad school, and like, but when we met in grad school, we just became friends really quickly.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, you might be an exception to my theory. I've had a lot of like, I don't know, I've had a lot of like life experience where I'm like, this person's definitely just a friend, like definitely just a friend.
Yeah.
Like, I only see him as a friend, right? Like, why is everybody else saying otherwise? And then it's obvious that he's interested. So, and I know so many girls who've had that experience, and that's why I say, yeah, that's why I say that, like, I think, and I also think that I think there's a difference, like, I think there's absolutely no harm in having a ton of guy friends when you're single. I had a ton of guy friends when I was single. It's very helpful, right? Like, when you're going out, when you're going places, when you take vacations, they're with you, and then you just have like a built-in bodyguard, basically.
Yeah. When you need advice about boys as well.
Right, exactly. Like, give you advice about boys. Make it so that you're not, you can go anywhere. You can go out and not be worried about guys. I think it's like actually really important for girls to have guy friends. So that's like kind of more of an unpopular opinion that I always got hate for growing up, because I always had a bunch of guy friends. But I thought it was super important because I didn't want to be dating, and I, wanted somebody, I'm a woman, I wanted someone to be with me, and make sure that I wasn't dying places. But I think that very much changes once you get in a relationship, especially once you get in a healthy relationship, because if you have respect for your, I never know what to call them, because significant other is when you're married, right?
No, it could be
okay. So
or
it could
partner,
be when you're
even though partner sounds like ambiguous.
So if you have respect for your partner, I don't think that. I don't know. I know this is a really radical view, but I don't think that there's a necessity to keep up any close guy friends, even the guys that you might say are your brothers. I think that guys and girls have relationships that are very different. I think that guys are fine talking every few months and catching up and hanging out, and then they're fine, I think that you can do that with your guy friends that you are close to as brothers. But I don't think that you should be going to these guys for advice once you have a boyfriend. I don't think you should be having weekly phone calls with them once you have a boyfriend. I don't think you should be venting to them, because that's why you have a boyfriend.
That is a very interesting opinion. I disagree.
All right, why do you disagree?
But I will say, like, many women think the way you think. And I know, and like you were saying, I have tons of, like, I have a friend who said she does not have male friends at all anymore, because she's never had a male friend just like her for who she is. Like, every male friend she's ever had has had a crush on her.
Right.
So, like, I totally understand and sympathize that there's a lot of girls out there who have had that experience. I just have not had that experience. So I feel like I can't just nod my head and agree with everyone whenever they talk about that. And it's what's very interesting about what you said about never like being alone and like you don't have to be as close. I'll say the reason why I disagree is because, at least for me, like, so when I was in Virginia Beach, my first I'm a social person. So one of my friend groups, and that ended up being the closest friend group I ended up being with, it was all guys. And then one of the guys got a girlfriend, and then I started bringing my friend around who ended up marrying one of the guys in that group.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so anyone else
Props to
need
you.
matchmaking? I'm here. I only charge $30. No, I'm just joking. I do it for free. But so in that group, okay, so while I was in that group, I was dating someone, and the guy brought up, so I had been friends with these guys way before I met my boyfriend. So he brought up how he would like the boundary to be that I'm not alone with them, which is, I disagree, but I'm going to respect him if that's a boundary he has. Like I'm not, I was just like, oh, just so you know, like it's literally nothing, like we're family practically. Like I feel absolutely nothing. And he expressed that if I was going to hang out, he would just feel more comfortable if it was like a big group instead of just like two other guys. Because two of the guys, we would like do homework together in my apartment, or we would go to like a study room type of thing, and it'll just be the three of us, and then maybe someone else will come, but he saw how close the three of us were. So he felt uncomfortable, which I respect that. I don't get it. Like I would not have a problem with that, but I think that's just because of my life experience. Everybody has different life experience. The reason why I kind of disagree with that is because that guy like ripped out my heart, stomped on it, lit it on fire. And if I had completely cut friendship with those guys, like that would have, I mean, I would have been alone. Like these were my friends. So I'm very glad that though I respected his boundary, I wasn't alone with them.
Yeah.
I'm really glad I didn't just completely cut that friendship off, because then it would have been for nothing, you know? So
no, that's such a hard situation.
yeah.
And I think that I would clarify a couple things. First of all, I've heard situations like that. And the first thing I would say is I'm not saying to like cut friendship off with them, but like I was kind of saying before, guys have a different, I've seen that guys have kind of a different way of having a friendship. You know, you can go a month or two without talking to them and, you know, hit them up and invite them to parties, right? Do social stuff with them where everybody's going to be there, right? So that obviously you don't want to be in a situation, well, you don't ever want to be in a situation where a guy rips your heart out, right? Like that is never ideal. But when you are in that situation, you don't want to be without friends. But I mean, secondly, I would say like I'm talking about like in an ideal, like I mean, I'm sure your relationship was relatively healthy, otherwise you wouldn't have been in it.
Absolutely.
But,
it was a very healthy relationship at the time.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, you know, maybe this is better for marriage, but like in an ideal, healthy relationship, I'm just saying ideals here. You know what I mean? I'm not saying this is gonna necessarily, but I'm just saying like invite them to parties, invite them to go out with you, invite them all the time. Like I have a lot of friends
to study,
right. Who, you know, I literally only see through group things, but I just I don't know. I think I understand what you're saying, and I think that it really depends on your life situation and the experience that you've had with guys, you know, and you know, in what kind of friends you have, you know, and what kind of conversations you have with your significant other. So it's an interesting topic. I mean, let us know in the comments if any what you guys think about this, because I feel like it's kind of like a touchy subject, because women don't want to, you know, quote unquote, be controlled by their boyfriend. And obviously, honestly, you know, in a healthy relationship, it shouldn't be seen as control. It should be seen as, you know, talking things out and like coming to a conclusion together. Like, it's not like, oh, my boyfriend won't let me talk to these guys, because that's unhealthy as it is. You know, that's unhealthy from the beginning.
And I want to say, like, if I were to date someone again and that was a boundary they had, I would respect that. I definitely wouldn't, you know, completely cut someone off. But I would respect, I like what you said, big group events. And I think it's also just part of like understanding everybody has a past. And I don't mean it in like a negative, like everybody has baggage, but I just mean like everybody's had different experiences.
It's true.
Like I know tons of girls who, for example, like the idea of like, what if your boyfriend has a female best friend? It would not bother me because of my life experiences. I know tons of girls who would be like, we're gonna cut that off right now. And it's just and this is why like dating, is so, it's more complicated than people want it to. I don't want to say complicated. That's why dating is so, it's not just this little thing that you go out, oh yeah, we're dating. Like,
Right.
you need to take it a
If
little
you're
more
actually
seriously.
trying for something, you
You gotta take it
have to actually
seriously.
take it seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's because, like, if you have to be with someone who you respect and someone who you guys have a similar, not necessarily similar past, but you guys can compromise together. For me,
Right.
like, if I were to date someone once again that said, hey, I would appreciate it if you and so did not go to that if it's just gonna be the two of you at the concert, I'd appreciate it if you didn't go. I can, if that's someone I'm dating, I can respect that. Will I be like, okay, well, will I like plead my case? Like, I really want to go to this concert. He's the only person that can go. Yes, but I don't want you to. Okay, cool. Like, you don't, and leave it at that. You, and
For
a
sure,
guy,
for
if
sure.
you're with a girl who was like pushing back, like, no, I'm going to this concert. You're not going to tell me nothing. Then that probably isn't the girl for you. And if the guy to the girl is like, oh, you're not going to that concert, and, you know, like, bangs on your door, ties you up and says you're not leaving, then that guy is not the guy for you. You have to be, I think it's important to realize you gotta be with someone who is on the same page as you,
for sure,
and who can respect you.
For sure. And it's all about healthy balance, and like you said, you know, it all stems from respect and from trust.
Yes. So let us know what you guys think in the comments. I know probably like 99.9% is going to agree with Savannah, which is fine.
I don't think so, though, Mal. No. I don't think so. I think that you know, I don't know. I think it's a difficult subject. I totally, like, if you had asked me this 1 year ago, I had a totally different view on it. I was totally in agreement with you.
Yeah. And you know what? Really quick, this also makes me think your opinion is going to change when you're in different seasons. So right now, a year ago, you weren't in a relationship. So, like, your opinion might be different. So my opinion when I'm in a relationship could be different. I don't know.
And when you're not just in a relationship, but like in a healthy, committed relationship, your opinion change. Because, I mean, kind of like what you were saying about like the guy best friend, girl best friend. Like, I just think that that's your person you're with should be your best friend, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Your person you're with should be your best friend. Whether or not, you know, you have a close guy friend or a close girlfriend. But it's like I think it all comes back to like the fact that like females and males are literally wired different. We're literally wired to want to reproduce with each other. And that has to be considered. Like, I'm not saying we're animals, but it's a natural tendency that I think we either overemphasize or we act like it doesn't exist. I think there's a hard time. We have a hard time finding a middle ground right now.
And I also think, so I brought this topic up for a reason, but we've been on it for like 20 minutes. That's okay. But I also think that a lot of it, so men and women are different. I think, not like general, I'm speaking generally, everyone. So if you're different, you don't have to, you know, email me to let me know you're different. This is general. Women, we are so attracted to personality. Obviously you don't want to be with someone who makes you want to throw up when you look at them. I'm not saying that. Of course not. But I'm saying like there's people who you might not have found attractive before, but you get to know them and you're like, oh my goodness, wow, this is the most handsome man on earth. Or someone who you're like, yeah, he's nice, and then you like really get to know him and all of a sudden he's like so handsome, so funny. You guys know that your friends that are with their husbands, and their husband says something that's not funny at all, and they're like, like, one of my friends, like, it was not funny, but you know, she's on the floor, screaming. It's so funny. So, like, dang it, I forgot where I was going with that. I wanted to make that joke, but I forgot where I was going with that.
You were saying that you brought it up for a reason.
Oh, yes. Okay. So men and women, we are just wired differently. So that's how women, we see each other or we start to like people a lot for personality. Men are very visual. They will probably notice your looks and then notice your personality. And women do the same, but not to the same extent, because that's just how God designed men and women. So with that, I do think the way men are viewing friendships can be very different than the way women view friendships. And I brought that question up because I do think when we are continually listening to all these things that are anti-men or anti-women, it also affects our friendship relationships. I think it also makes it kind of hard to even be friends with a woman if you're a man. If all you hear is that women just want your money and they're just mean, evil women. So like even your friend, a girl that you met in college and she wants to study, she knows you're smart, she wants to, then you start to like spiral. Same with women. If all you're hearing is, yeah, these men, all they do is rape and pillage, like they steal and they break your heart, that's all these men do, then you're going to have a hard time even being friends with them. And I think that these types of things affect our friendships, not just like boyfriend girlfriend relationship, but like genuine friendships. And I do think you pointed this out too, I do think men and women having good healthy friendships are important, because I mean we are put on this earth together for a reason. And I don't necessarily think that when you get into a marriage or a relationship you're supposed to completely like cut everything and everyone
Not at all.
off.
Not
I think
at all.
it's supposed to be a big community, which is a whole nother conversation. Last night actually my great grandma was honored at an event, part of this club she was in, and I was just listening to everybody all over, not all over the world, all over our town talk about like the impact she's had and this and that, and like how a lady was saying how she would go and walk with her and a couple other ladies, they just like walk around the neighborhood. And I think that that's really how it's supposed to be. Now obviously it's just ladies, so it doesn't
community for sure,
but it could be anybody. And I think that that's like, just hearing about these things can affect that. And honestly it can affect the females too, because I think like if you're always thinking, oh my goodness, you go out with your friends and you're looking around and all of these girls have OnlyFans, like how can I be friends with them? It can affect us women too, because like I would care. Like if I had a friend that had an OnlyFans, I would care. I'm not quite sure what I would do or how I would respond. I'm guessing I definitely would like, hey girly, like what's going on, how about we delete this, one of those situations. But like I don't know to the full extent of like what else do you do in that situation. But my point is like you don't want to allow that to cloud your judgment of other people, I guess you could say, is like my point of bringing that up.
No, I mean, I agree. I think that, sorry, I'll just add one thing and then you can go on. I think that we already have a culture right now that's pitting men against women. And that's obviously very detrimental. Like that's not, it's destruction of the family unit. It's not how it's supposed to be. But this, the Whatever podcast, especially the last few episodes, has just been, contributing to that. It's been pitting men against women. The host has basically said that, he doesn't have a problem with commitment, but he doesn't trust women enough to get married, right? That's a huge societal problem. He doesn't think there's any woman who'd be worth getting married to. There's been other men on the show who've said, there's no woman, like commitment and women are just what's it called, opposites, right? There's no woman who would actually be in a committed relationship. And that's, it's very sad to see. Like you said, it pits women against women, it pits men against women, and we are called to be a community and and to grow together, and that's not what we've been seeing.
And I think wow, that's really sad. So two things. I'm not going to say there's truth to that statement, because that's not a true statement.
Wait, what statement are you talking about?
Oh, sorry. The statement that there's no woman is commitment, and
women are opposites.
Yeah. That statement I want to refer to. So there's no truth to that statement. Women can be committed. I mean, your mothers were like,
right.
That's
There's
wild.
No truth to that statement.
There's no truth to that. There is a part where there are women who have cheated. There are women who have lied. There are women who have taken their spouse's money, and because of shifting in culture, there is a woman who does fit that criteria. There is at least one woman out there, because that's just how sin is in society. So there's that aspect of him
for sure
mentioning that. The other aspect is if that's truly your mentality, if that's how you're going to go about life, it is going to be very hard for you to interact with any woman at all. So back to even like a friend, that's going to be hard for you to interact with the woman at the grocery store, because this stuff gets into your head. Like I personally have had to like take different social media breaks and like take different breaks from different creators, because all that stuff getting into your head, filling your head. If you're, women, they're not committed at all. It's going to affect how you treat people. Think about when these guys have daughters. I mean, even the guy that's always wears a tight suit, he said he has daughters. Like, how do you think he's treating his daughters? That's kind of scary. So you know who I'm talking about, the guy that always wears a tight suit.
Yeah.
And like it affects everything.
That man drives me crazy.
Me too.
I don't like that man.
Me too.
To a point like where like people rarely make me actually mad on like shows that I'm watching.
Did you see he was on the Jubilee episode where they debated alpha? It was like alpha versus beta males or something. He was in that one.
No, I didn't even see that episode.
That is a crazy episode.
I'm gonna have to watch that.
Yeah, some of the things these alphas were saying, I was like, yikes.
I'm trying to remember, because there's a different. Okay, right. So there's a difference between, and I'm not an expert on this, so I'm looking into it, so that's what I'm talking about. There's beta males, there's alpha males, and then there's, I think it's called black-pilled males. Have you heard of that?
Yes. So there's red pill, black pill, beta, and alpha. Yes.
Right. So, I mean, I would describe him, whatever his name is. People probably know who we're talking about. He's in the tight blue suit, right?
Yes. And he always wears a tight suit.
I'm trying to remember his name.
No idea.
Don't remember it. I would describe him as a black pill man, because he truly does not. He has like a bunch of wives, right?
I think he has a bunch of kids,
or he has a bunch of kids. Okay.
I'm not sure about his
relationship status. It's so I don't know about all the truth, because he says a bunch of different things. Sometimes, he doesn't always like say the truth.
Yeah.
There's Lila Rose had a good tweet the other day. She said, in our culture, it's important to remember that we want men to be like Saint Joseph, not Andrew Tate. Ooh. Right? And Saint Joseph was a leader, right? He was a leader of the household. He was obviously very, had to be assertive, right? That's what a good leader does. But he wasn't a controlling maniac, which is what we're seeing these men turn into. And not that it's all their fault.
Because that's another thing.
Exactly. It is true, and I think this. I mean, obviously, I don't know if there's statistics on this, but white men are looked down upon right now in our culture. There's a lot there. It is true. It's the hardest that it's ever been probably in history for white men to like rise. Go up the corporate ladder.
Yeah.
Right. Socially, and in a lot of different ways, but so that is true. But I think that they're taking it to a point where it's like, okay, like we have to rebel so much that like everyone is against us. And it's never a good tactic to take. I think that feminism went to the extreme, and now this sort of red-pilled alpha male is going to the extreme, just as feminism did 60 years ago, and it's just as bad.
It's the same coin, just different sides. I completely agree with everything you said. I think that, one of the arguments that I'm sure anytime you talk about red pill men or anything like that, these men already have it locked in to make sure they comment. So I'm sure someone's going to comment this. An argument they always say is there are not a lot of good role models. And you know what?
For men or for women?
For men. Right. And I can agree with that. I'm not a woman, and I'm really not looking to get advice from men. So like, I don't necessarily, I can't.
I mean, we don't know. Deny. I mean, it's not like I, find a lot of good influences, but right. I'm sure I can name at least 5. I mean, first of all, Saint Joseph, if you're looking for good influences for men, like who can we think of?
List
some. I mean, Saint Joseph was, a great man. Because that's the other thing too is this is a whole nother conversation, but I think that men, conservative political men have an easier time being fake online and living a very dirty life than women do.
Yes.
But besides the point, people who I've known in person and who I've either talked to in person, saw behind the scenes, whatever. Obviously, I have not seen behind the scenes of St. Joseph because he lived thousands of years ago. But look into his story. He was the husband of Mary. Him, Dr. Taylor Marshall. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He is a Catholic podcast host, but he has a super big family, and he talks about the issues with this whole the issues that men are experiencing in our world. And actually, he just did a long interview with Candace Owens' husband. And I think I was listening to it and I was like, oh my gosh, this interview, it's 2 parts. It's about 2 hours in total. For any young man who's like, oh, there's no good role models for me. Oh, I don't know where to look. Watch that interview. It's 2 amazing men raising families in our world and just discussing how they're doing it, and maybe if I think of some others, we can put them in the show notes, or we can ask online. But I think that you're gonna find a lot of good women role models online. We have social media, we have Instagram. You can find good women role models there. I think the good men role models are going to be the ones behind the scenes. I don't think they're necessarily going to be the ones in front of the camera, because I think the ones in front of the camera. Alex Clark just did a whole podcast on that. I mean, it's so for show, and they're so disconnected from their family life. It's sad. It's unfortunate, but I've seen a lot of that firsthand.
Yeah. And you know what? Since you brought that up, Benny Johnson was on the podcast.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm talking about.
Yeah. I listened to it. I wasn't necessarily pro or against Benny Johnson. I don't really know much about him.
Same.
He's not really my humor, but I know a lot of Gen Z likes him. But, I respected him, and I think I followed the wife. I respected him a lot when he made the comment about, like, if you're going to say that this is your life, go ahead and live that life. Show people that life. We need more men excited about being fathers. And I did scroll on his Instagram, and like I said, he's not really my humor. Right. But his wife definitely seems like someone I would want to follow, so I followed her. But looking at his, you can see he genuinely cares, and like, he's a proud girl dad, and I think that is important. And I think that doesn't necessarily come naturally for men to do that. I mean, most of the guys, like my brother has maybe posted on Instagram like maybe every other month, maybe. Right. Facebook, I don't think he's his Facebook profile, I think, is still that, like, remember years ago when it was like a bomb went off somewhere in France, so everybody changed their profile picture to the flag.
The flag.
To the French flag or something like that.
That's funny.
And I think that's still his profile, and that happened like when I was in undergrad. So like,
that's funny.
Men just they're just not like that. They're not social media. I mean, they're on social media, but I don't think not to the extent of like women. And we naturally, I think it is part of our like what Savannah and I do is partially education. Well, no, not partially. It is education. Like with our podcast, and even in our personal lives and our professional careers, we do a lot of education. I think that is just kind of natural for women to go into this field. I think men, not necessarily. Not saying that men can't educate, not saying that they don't do it, but I do think that you made such a valuable point that a lot of the men that are really living that life and that are good examples are probably behind the scenes. And let's be honest, they probably aren't going to get as much attention if they were in front of the scenes, because naturally we like the loud and like the the fancy car. But is it a Maserati? Is that like a nice car? Maserati,
Dude, don't ask me about cars. I'm not the person to ask.
Well, men like that stuff, so they like to see that. They like the idea of like really hot women being into them, because that's just what their flesh likes. So that's what their flesh naturally gravitates to. So those are the videos that are going to get the higher views. I'm going to have to watch that interview with George Farmer.
I thought it was really, really really good for young men to watch, because I mean, it's true. I think there's a lot more men on social media than there really ever has been in history. And you're right. There's not a lot of genuine examples. And so I think, you know, you have to look into your own community and to the people that, like my dad is an amazing example. My dad will never have a social media platform. Like you will,
Same.
if you're in Wisconsin, you have to come to his house and see how he does everything with his kids, how he cans, how he gardens, how he, shows them that life while still being a biomedical engineer. Like you have to come to our house to see that.
Same.
He has no desire to it's kind of self-explanatory. So I think that those, guys who will say, oh, there's no men for me to follow, you have to look in your own community, because there are a lot of good men out there.
And I want to add, and this is becoming a lost art, but I think there's a lot of books, though. I think there are a lot of books for men.
Yeah.
Which, now that I'm like saying it out loud, I feel like there's more books for men than there are for women. Maybe not, but there are tons of books for men.
There's a lot.
My brother is always bringing in like a male something book, like
right.
And it's, if there's ways to do it. And then also, I also feel weird telling men, like, but there are men who are going to watch this, because I'm sure they're going to find this. And we do have a couple male listeners, but also, like, dang it, I forgot what I was going to say again. Men, there's men out there you can listen to and watch.
Yeah.
And there's books, I know what I was gonna say now. You have to kind of already have your, at least a standard, because that's the other thing too. At least, and I know I can say this for me. So I've listened to a lot of entrepreneur stuff. For those that don't know, I have a jewelry store, these earrings, this necklace, and I've been listening to a lot of entrepreneur stuff. And as a Christian, I do have a standard that I try to stick to when it comes to getting advice about different things. And I don't, obviously, no one's going to go on the advice and say, yeah, rob people. But they will go on and say, well, you know what? And let me tell you something that helped me with my business. I started aligning my chakras and doing my crystals every single morning. And I take this ayahuasca every day. And I mean, it has improved my business. You guys won't believe it. So it's already having your standard. As a woman, that's something that I think we women, when we're trying to, work on our success and our careers and things like that, that's what we would face. For men, it could be, yeah, guys, and you talk to 50 girls, one of them will sleep with you, and then you'll get 60 more. So you have to already have that standard, because if you don't already have that standard, you're going to kind of just listen and keep listening and following along anyway. Yeah.
Agreed. We could talk about this forever. But I do have to go pretty soon. We can wrap it on up.
I was going to say, is there anything else you want to say about, I guess, like relationships or anything, like one thing of the whatever podcast that you thought they did well or anything like that?
I think if you're curious to see what the Whatever podcast is about, go to Live Action's page, and we post clips where Lila has made some really good points. I think that, the Whatever podcasts are like 4 hours long. They're kind of too long to listen to, and it fills your brain with a bunch of trash. I think that I'm hopeful. It's actually really funny. So it's super startup, but I think it's happening. So I'm just going to say St. Petersburg, where I live, is starting like a dating podcast, sort of like Whatever podcast, like super startup. I don't even think they've started it yet, but that's going to be cool. I think that the discussion needs to be had. I think that we need to try to choose people from different walks of life instead of only fans girls. But I do think that, in our culture, you hear it every day. I hear it every day. Dating is more difficult than ever, and it needs to be talked about, and we need to have good role models to follow. At church yesterday, they were, and I'll just wrap up with this, but the homily, talk was about, it was talking about like how you need to live your life as an example. And we hear that all the time, right? We hear that all the time. People are watching people, but like hearing it again and just like, okay, like you're going about your day to day. It might not seem very important, but like people are watching, people are listening, people are seeing how you live your day to day. It matters. It matters to the people around you. You don't know how many people you influence. So there's just a closing thought to think about and to remember on this Monday, but
yeah. And I'll wrap up my last thing. I think that as a single person, and those of you who are listening who are single, I think it's really important for us to just have our morals and to hold on to truths. The truth is not that every woman is a liar and that every man is evil. You know, those aren't truths. So I think it's important when you're going into dating to just recognize that and to try to not do things to affirm the negative. So, you know, continually listening to how all men are evil. And I'm talking to myself because I can fall into this trap all the time. It's possible. I have fallen into it. So just making sure that we're just keeping our morals and understanding that and just making sure we're holding on to truths. The truth is dating can be difficult, but at the end, if it's the person God has for you, you end up married with kids and you guys go to heaven together. You know, that's the goal of dating, and you know, holding on to that I think is really important. So if you guys like this episode, let us know. Do you think that men and women can be friends? That'll be the poll that'll have
I'm excited to just hear what people think because, like I said, that's an interesting discussion.
Yes, I'd love to hear what you think. And if you enjoyed it, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening to. If it's on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. And on the review, let us know, what do you think? Do you think that just leave your answer. And then on Spotify, make sure that you have liked it and you answer the question. On YouTube and Rumble, make sure you answer the question in the comments. And on Instagram, just interact with us. Savannah, tell people where to find you.
So you can find me on my Instagram at Sav Speaks Life. Podcast is at Classy Chicks Pod. And then everything else is just my name, Savannah Dudzik.
Perfect. All right, you guys, have a great night, evening, however, wherever you are. Bye.
Bye.